Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I think I probably do know everybody here, but for the record, I'm Basil Flum, and I'm chair of the resident council. And I got a few comments to get us underway this morning. Today is also a 651 day, a day in which our representative of LifeSpace, which is Joey, our executive director, our beloved executive director, gets to talk to us. And so he'll be first on the agenda. I do want to say a word. You know, we've got a couple new people here. I don't think the Lorraine Susi, does anybody know her? I don't think she's moved in yet, but she's going in. Moved in yesterday. How do you pronounce the last name, Carol? You don't know? B13, right? B314. Huh? Sewage? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. And then Marty Shader has moved in. I know she's moved in. I've spoken to her. She here today? In the F building. And she has a long heritage here. If people don't know that we've had the Shaders, Dan and Mimi, who used to live at villas across the street, the same family. The Shader family is a pretty famous family here in Central Florida. So we're happy to have her. And I have just a comment. We don't have any demises to report today, but on Monday morning, I walked through the health center as I delivered mail to one of the occupants, and I must have counted at least 6 people in independent living in the health center. And it's really easy to forget about. I probably didn't know these 4 of the 6 people who were there. And so I only mention that to you because it's good not to forget even those people that are sick and placed in the health center. And I was reminded of that this morning because I stole a pen from Paul Krause, and he's one of those people that are in there. I'm not going to mention any other names.
He's home.
He's home now, so he's not even there anymore. But people here on the healthcare committee really do pay attention to guardian angels and stuff like that, so there's a role for us to not forget them. The agenda is coming up. There it is. So I told you it's 6:51, so Joey gets the first slot on the agenda. We'll have the highlights of the meeting of the last resident council meeting, which was my birthday, March 7th. Thank you all very much for cards and acknowledgments. We'll give you some highlights from that. And then the reports from the committee. And the only thing that's not on the agenda on the screen is that Al Porter will give a quick rundown for the finance committee because they've had a lot of activity in the last few weeks, as you probably guessed. So that's the agenda for the day. So at this point, I'll simply introduce and hand the clicker to my associate.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Basil, for the introduction. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to try and keep this to my 30 minutes. A bit of a Herculean task for me, but I will do my best. Also, I have not gotten these slides onto Touchdown yet. I may have just been doing them right before this meeting and did not get them posted, but I promise I will get you a copy as soon as we are concluded here. As Basil noted, today serves as our official Chapter 651. That's the requirement for a quarterly meeting, but we meet monthly. But I do go ahead and just designate 4 throughout the years to make sure when they come to do our audit, they see our slides and everything. Everything we do, grounded in these 4 kind of tenets for the year, continues from last year that focus on team members, on you, the residents, our customer, occupancy, and then our financial performance. Jumping right into January 24, had a bit of a bumpy month. Actually, some of our finance committee members may be scratching their heads a little bit looking at these numbers because they're different than our initial January numbers that we reported in finance committee. Some of those budget issues that I mentioned have been updated, so that has actually moved some of our numbers, especially on the current month net operating margin budget. You'll see that's a negative $118,000 loss that was anticipated. That was originally a negative $78,000. So you'll see some updates to that, and I can run through that with you in the next meeting. And actually, I think there are going to be some more changes as well. Unfortunately, not for the good on the budget side, as we've identified some other issues that we've needed to address and update our budgetary figures from that perspective. But it does help to kind of explain current performance as to where we are. Best way to kind of dive into this is just kind of looking at revenues and expenses at a high level. I know this is an eye chart, but essentially this breaks our revenue down to level of living. If you look at AL, home health, and skilled nursing, you'll see we had positive revenue figures for those departments. In the independent living and memory care are two areas where we did not have positive revenues compared to our budget. Essentially, that's our budget variance that's negative. In memory care, we were able to address that one big miss, Al, that we had from a budget perspective, because originally that was a negative $40,000 variance, and now it's a $10,000. And that was really, we had 4 vacancies in memory care in the month of January. Just attrition occurring there. And you know from historical performance, memory care is almost always full at 18 out of 18. And we're back there again for February and now March, but January we got kind of hit with the whammy there, so that reflected in the monthly service fees collected. On the independent living side, that in January is, we did not have any closings in January, so we didn't get the processing fees. We also paid out a good amount of resident referral monthly service credits, because remember December was a big month with 10 move-ins, 9 of which were resident referrals. So all of those monthly service fee credits then show up the next month in January. So that's that shows up there as kind of a negative revenue, even though it's an expense, they put it in as a negative revenue. And then our occupancy, I think our budgeted occupancy is to be 81%, and we're still in that 79% in January there. So that's where you see that kind of negative variance on the independent living revenue side. So overall, when you look at it compared to budget, we were behind only by 25,000, really buoyed by skilled nursing, strong census and payer mix, as well as a continued strong caseload in home health. On the expense side, we were about $73,000 over budget. Some of these issues have been from a budgetary, there are some budgetary issues driving some of this, especially on the skilled nursing side, where you see a $50,000 overage. That shows up in our salaries and wages, where our nurse and CNA budget figures are off from what we actually staff. So we only just got that addressed here in mid-February. So I don't know how much grace I'm going to get in terms of updating those budgetary figures, but those are some of the things that we're still kind of working through to try and iron out. Some of the additional overages is really in the salaries and wages. We had 2 holidays in January and holiday pay associated with that. The holidays, life space budgets, not per month, but basically over the course of the year. So anytime you get a couple of holidays in a month from a salaries and wages perspective, you see quite an overage because that cost is factored out throughout the year instead of weighted within the month that it actually occurs. And then a couple other variances that you'll see, we have not yet brought security in-house. So you see, if you get into like the line items, you'll see security contractors over budget, but from the labor perspective, we're under. So a couple of those variances that pop out throughout the actual line items balance out. So really the team actually is doing a pretty good job of managing to the budget. It's just a matter of ultimately we need to grow top line revenue to kind of extract ourselves from the hole that we're in, and that really comes from independent living occupancy. So moving on to just I'm selling advertisements now for revenue review. So occupancy as of today, 79.01%, 207 out of 262 occupied. We have had 4 residents officially move out or move through the continuum, releasing an independent living unit. There may be other residents who have passed, but there's still a spouse residing in the IO unit, so it doesn't count towards attrition per se. We have 2 more on the books that we know will be coming back to us once their families and estates essentially clear out the units and then return them to us. Still tracking below what our projection for the year is of 29. So that's kind of in part to our attrition management efforts that we implemented really with Wendy's arrival last year, continuing to do fairly positive on that front. Sales, we've had 2 closings, both occurred in February, and we have 5 deposits. I think we have 2 firm for March in that 5. The other 3 are kind of April, May, June closings at this time. A lot of good activity in the sales department right now, so we feel that we're building momentum in terms of our sales. I think January's 0 sales is a little deceiving in that you look at December's 10, LifeSpace was really pushing for a strong 2023, and we had some very strong incentives in the 4th quarter of 23, so we moved folks from January into December to be able to capture that. So, I still feel our sales team is doing a good job. Our marketing efforts under our new chief marketing officer are starting to bear some fruit. The number of leads we're getting, especially through our new website, have gone up almost 300%. And that's just not volume, it's quality leads. So age qualified, income qualified. So we're seeing some good momentum there, and we're looking towards kind of building towards our goal of 48.
Is this of today?
This is of today. This is of today, yes sir. Yep. So team member updates. In the sales department, we do no longer have Teresa Carter. That was a support center position. That was kind of a hired gun to come in and help. But the support center has parted ways, and so she's no longer at the Village on the Green. Jose Vasquez. Jose, stand up. Jose is our Director of Plant Operations. He started Monday. Today, day 3? Day 3, yes. We got you into a plant committee meeting yesterday, and just jumping right in, right? Elevators down, windows going in. Water's off. I mean, we figure if he lasts this week and comes back, we'll be in good shape, right? But excited to have you, Jose. Thank you for being here, sir. Yep. Xavier Williams continues to serve in that interim housekeeping supervisor role. With Jose on board now, we'll look to officially kind of post and go through that process to solidify that position. We are recruiting for a sales counselor. Truth be told, it's we're looking for a unicorn in that position, and so we will keep it posted, but we're really just focused on the team that we have, and we feel with Stephanie and with Menica, Angie, and Rebecca, and Christina, we've got enough horsepower in that office to work with what we have. But if that unicorn comes along, we'll certainly take a stab at it. We're also back to looking for a health center billing specialist. The home office has been restructuring how billing tasks occur, especially for the skilled nursing side, and are pushing a lot of that responsibility back into the community, which is a good thing. However, Javi can only do so much, so essentially we need someone skilled nursing focused who has that knowledge of all the various insurance plans to be working in the skilled nursing to help us capture all of the revenue that we can on that side. So we are back to looking for that position. We had started in the fall, didn't find anyone, kind of hit pause for a while, and now the work is like, hey, we really do need to get moving on that. So that's why we're going back to that position. LifeSpace Foundation. So Kurt Gilo, he's the Vice President of Philanthropy for LifeSpace. He and I are going to be doing a little informational session on Tuesday, April 9th at 2 p.m. in the multipurpose room. He has been with the organization less than a year, but he did just get kind of through a personal health crisis that he had, thankfully, successfully. So he's really kind of hitting the ground now and coming out to the communities, and he and I have had some good conversations about our community's Foundation Advisory Committee, and we need to hit reset on that. There are a number of initiatives that the foundation is working on for the communities to be able to use to engage residents, especially team members in giving, and then also business partner outreach. So getting our vendors like Unidyne and whatnot, a part of our foundation efforts. So really that meeting is informational. If you might be interested in participating in that, if you have participated in the Foundation Advisory Committee in the past and are looking to continue to stay involved, I welcome you to that. It's informational, but it's also, we want to just have kind of an informal discussion, a little bit about the history, what's important to you, what's important to the community from a foundation perspective. There are a number of programs from the Team Member Appreciation Fund, Benevolent Care Endowment, capital funds and things like that, that we kind of want to identify what are the priorities for the residents at Village on the Green, and how can we kind of align the foundation's resources and potentially kind of restart our Foundation Advisory Committee. So that's just kind of the beginning of what I'm sure is going to be an ongoing dialogue and process, but invite anyone who might be interested in participating. It's no commitment, we're not going to sign you up in an oath or anything like that. Just come and talk, and even if you just have information to share with us, we're happy to have that. But so I wanted you to be aware of that. My choice, we made it to March 1st. We went live. We made that switch over to points. Important reminder for our residents in Group 2. Those are the folks that got 300 points on the 1st. Your 300 points are good through tomorrow, the 14th. And then at midnight, you reset, and you're going to get 600 points on March 15th. Those 600 points per resident will carry you through April 14th. So that's just that quasi group that had that partial to get you on the correct 1 month cycle there. So the culinary team getting a lot of good feedback. We're working through menus, we're working through pricing, we're working through tax quirks and things like that. So we're continuing to meet with the whole project team every week. We just met yesterday morning to address kind of our laundry list of issues we still have. So appreciate your patience and grace as we kind of figure all of that out. I've run a couple of reports just to see kind of where we're at, and I think some of you are hanging on to some points there. But this is kind of what other communities have seen. Residents a little bit of anxiety, hanging on to the points. Will I have enough? And then you got to get towards the end of your period and start letting them fly. So just going to kind of continue monitoring that and appreciate your ongoing feedback, and we're working with the culinary committee to see what else we can do to make that a smooth transition. We will be rolling out online ordering. We just had our first meeting this morning on that. There's a good bit of setup that's going to be involved. So realistically, I don't think you're going to have something in front of you for another 2 to 3 months before, as we go through that process, but we are starting it. So that's going to be another option, not a requirement, nothing mandatory, but for those wanting to avoid the phone and the messages and that whole hassle, you're going to be able to go and see the actual menu, place your orders without having to deal with the human until pickup or delivery time. Building window replacement. So we're kind of rolling with building A and the window replacement there. I think feedback overall from residents has been, it's been a pretty smooth process. The actual, moving furniture, tearing out, it is loud, definitely hearing that. Getting the new windows in. We haven't had any, touch wood, crazy curveballs thrown our way. So that vendor continues to keep working. I think we're looking at mid-April to be done, maybe a little earlier. And actually, we have done the measurement process for building B. B, C, and D, those project funds have been approved. So I might be needing to get with my building B residents pretty soon to start talking about kind of what the process looks like for you, because depending on the manufacturing time, we may be in a situation where we're rolling right from A into B. If there's any manufacturing delays, obviously there'll probably be a gap, but our ideal scenario would be we wrap up with A and then start moving into B window replacements. Community wireless. Steve knows my blood pressure was a little high yesterday. So the vendor's on site, working, all sorts of stuff. It's been a bumpy project, just a lot of subcontractors employed by the vendor that we weren't necessarily really aware of how much was being kind of delegated to other vendors. So the communication has not been great. There's a lot of finger pointing going on right now. So we're trying to work through that. Jose and Lenny had a call this morning with that team to try and figure some stuff out. But certainly appreciate your flexibility as the crews fly around this campus. We're getting the work done. I mean, it is moving. Unfortunately, it's just not as coordinated or well communicated as we'd like. We're certainly learning some lessons, and the vendor that is responsible for the villas portion, we're already kind of implementing those lessons with that vendor, and they actually seem already more responsive and on it. So we're a little bit more hopeful it's going to be a smoother process for the villas. A couple of requests, we talk about wireless, and folks are like, oh, is this senior TV? Oh, is this, PalCare? Yes, but essentially this part of the project is the infrastructure. This is like building the highways for all of those future systems and services to be able to utilize. This is really strictly a capital project, so it's not that there's a service which will result in a charge to you at this point. When we look at Care Predict, which is going to be the replacement for PalCare, and that's the first one on deck, that will be rolled out this year at some point, most likely in the summer. Then once we kind of tackle that, we'll talk about what all is involved with Care Predict. What services does it provide? How does it work? How do you access it? Essentially kind of like we went through with My Choice, we'll have to go through a process with Care Predict. Similarly, the project after Care Predict is the resident wireless. So this is where it impacts your ability to get on the internet. Now you'll have that campus-wide coverage to be able to get your devices on in any areas.
What is PalCare?
PalCare is the emergency pendant system that you have now. So some may wear watches, some may wear around your neck, the pull cords in your bathrooms, the motion sensors, that stuff. That's PalCare. And that's an obsolete system that's got to go ASAP. So that's what Care Predict is, the replacement system for that. So then it'll be resident wireless access. People ask, about the $40 charge and what will it be? What is it? That's when we're going to address that, because frankly, I'm not even sure what all is involved with the resident wireless component. And then senior TV, I think an alternative or the replacement for senior TV will be following at that resident wireless access. Senior TV is our satellite dish-based system that provides the cable package on your television. I know some of you opt for Spectrum, but we started a process, and then Lifespace kind of paused it for a little bit as to what the replacement is going to be for senior TV. And I don't have a firm answer on that, but then when we do get there, that's when we'll talk about costs and what's available and what channels and things like that. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit. Really right now we're focused on building the highway, and then each service as it comes on, we'll have to go through kind of a whole project, and then we'll talk about specific costs, how it impacts you, and things like that. This is just like a quick snippet. I know it's impossible to see. There's a orange squiggle line all over this. This is the vendor who's going to be responsible for running the fiber optic lines to all of the villas. They've been on site, they've done a site plan, they've actually drawn this to show us where they're going to be running the cables. This will require the bidirectional boring underground, so if you think under the roads throughout the campus, under driveways for the villas, so they're going to show kind of how they're running from the apartment building. This, I think, this is what we missed on the apartment building process. So when it came to conduits and cables, it was just a hot mess. So we're trying to approach this with a much more methodical, clear plan as to what we're doing. So as they finalize this is what we'll share with you, so you're aware, okay, they're going to be going under my driveway, or they're going to be crossing the street here, so that you're aware, we're aware of what's going on. So we are working on that. That will be, they're getting geared up. They haven't given us a start date yet. They're still working on their plan, but that's probably in a few weeks that they're going to get started with the actual work on running these fiber optic cables around campus to connect the villas. Community entryway, thank you for those who participated in the presentation and gave feedback. Had a follow-up call with the project team yesterday, and they are working on revising the tower, the government house, and they're also looking at the feedback on the walkways. So none of the changes there would impact the permitting process or the planning process. If anything, there'd be kind of minor design modifications or deletions, which, if you don't do something you permitted, that's not that big a deal. So they are taking a look at that. Haven't gotten any kind of timeline as to when I might get some feedback on it, but they're working on it. A couple things to be aware of: team member engagement surveys ongoing right now. So we've had 40% of our team members since Monday participate in that. Last year we had 68% total participate, so we're trying to exceed that. And we had a nice kickoff lunch of Olive Garden on Monday, and we nabbed almost 100 team members, just luring them in with food. So we're working on that. Theoretically, under the LifeSpace philosophy, happy team members means happy residents. So we want to make sure we're taking care of our team members, and anything you can do, especially for our young culinarians, to get them to participate. Believe it or not, when they're on their device, they are not doing their survey. So we need them to. We want their feedback. So we're trying to get those folks on board. But that's ongoing through March 22nd. And then it's your turn, April 8th through the 19th. Same format, same questions as I understand it. It will be offered online, and there will be the phone option. There's that ability to call the phone number and talk to a live person who will ask you the questions, and you can verbally give your answers. So if you don't want to mess with online forms or any of that, you'll be able to do the phone process. This is the assessment of Village on the Green. So your feedback on how our culinary program is going, how our administration is working, how our healthcare program is offering. That's what's going to be surveyed in this. I say that in that if you want to make a statement about LifeSpace, please spare me on that survey. But if you want to make a statement about Village on the Green, by all means, that's your opportunity to do so there. So that's coming up. There'll be more information on that. Similar, I think in the past, the Lifestyles team has helped us do kind of a kickoff event to try and kind of get some participation going early. We'll be doing something similar probably that Monday the 8th or maybe the Tuesday after to generate some buzz around the survey. And again, I just tie that all back. Those are kind of our checkpoints. We do 2 of those surveys, both for team members and residents throughout the year. And those tie directly back to our scorecard. Next meeting, I think I did pretty good. I think I'm like 25 minutes in. Next meeting, April 10th, 10:30 right here. And any questions? If you have a question, give me a second. Let Isabella get to you with the microphone so that our folks at home can hear. Yes?
Hi, I have 2 questions. What is happening to this senior TV right now? There seem to be a lot of outages. The menu for the programming is been frozen since over a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Are they up to something, or?
So Lenny was giving me a bit of an education on that. So I get there's a threshold. It's something like anything from channel 22 on down it's out of our Village on the Green's realm to be able to solve it. The ones that are like 22, and I might be wrong about 22, it might be 24, but anything above that, those are the specific receivers that are in our telecommunications cabinet. So oftentimes when like ESPN goes down, that receiver went bad, Lenny's got to get a new one shipped in, plugged in, programmed, and then it's up and running. But when it's 22 and below, then we have to rely on Senior TV or Centrix to be the technical troubleshooter and fixer on that.
That is channel 2. So.
What's that?
That is channel 2.
That's channel 2. So that is one of them. I know he has a work ticket in with them. part of our wanting to go away from senior TV and Centrix is, you know, kind of exemplified by this. You know, a week to fix a channel, which probably will take them 10 minutes to fix, is, you know, not good customer service. So I don't have an update. I'm gonna kick that to Jose to follow up on and be able to report.
My other question was about the new entryway to the clubhouse. I was at the presentation and we talked very briefly about parking spaces availability around the, in the center here. And I counted, we currently have 15. And we couldn't get a number out of during the presentation of how many we are going to have after the beautification.
Darren kept telling me 2 more. So based on your math, I'm gonna say 17. I do know that when you see them doing the work, it's gonna look like there should be a lot more parking spaces. But one of the things that, you know, in bringing things up to code, the requirements for the ADA handicap accessible spots, it's almost like 2 handicap spots per one handicap spot equals 2 normal parking spots. So I think he's hemming and hawing on the exact number based on like how much are we gonna have to dedicate to the handicap accessible spots. So I think as those firm up, we'll definitely let you know. But they basically made it as much parking as they could given the current grade situation that they're having to manage, because it is actually, when you go out there and take a look, you're actually kind of on a downhill. You know, the road kind of runs to the front door. And so obviously we need to move that water to the sides where the rain gullies are. So they basically try to maximize it as much as possible. But, you know, we've got ADA on one side and then the drainage on the other that kind of are 2 hard guardrails on that.
Because currently we have 5 handicap spots around the circle.
Yeah, there's a calculation, and this is usually where the negotiation takes place. It's like how many occupants of the building, how many people come here, and then there's a certain percentage of that you have to be able to factor into, okay, you know, this is how many. Now, you know, we may say, oh, there's only 60 occupants, and then the county may come back and say, no way, this is a clubhouse, there's 500, and we're like, no, there's no 500, you know, we'll go back and forth on that a little bit, but there's a pretty set formula on occupant load that you have to have so many parking spots per, and within X feet of the entrance. Mindy up here?
Yeah, just on the new internet, will it be a secure internet, or will we need to secure our own internet internally?
So that was one of the things Chris Ratliff, our Chief Information Officer, said that security really is one of the paramount aspects of that. Because if you think about it, we're using kind of like, if you think about one big straw, and there's a lot of traffic. There's going to be enterprise Wi-Fi, there's going to be Care Predict, there's going to be resident Wi-Fi. Each one of those can have different levels of security, but that there has to be security, because really when you compromise one, you potentially compromise all. What that actually looks like to you, I'm not entirely sure. You know, the kind of the promise was, the expectation was set that you'd be able to get on your iPad, you know, start FaceTiming with your grandchild and walk to the clubhouse and, you know, magic wand, you don't have to switch Wi-Fi networks and it all works. That involves some sort of handoff from one Wi-Fi point to the other, so something working in the background. Those details as to what that looks like, is it a, you know, one-time login? Is it unique to you? Is it unique to all residents? I'm not entirely clear on that stuff. But as we get to the resident wireless aspect, that's where we'd be able to give you more information on what that would actually look like. But I do know security is one of the things that's kind of forefront in his mind of how we keep that safe.
What was the percentage of residents' response in the survey last year?
That's a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can get that for you. And I would probably give it to you by level of living, because in general, when we do the survey, we do IL, AL, memory care, and skilled nursing, and then skilled nursing can be divided into long-term and then short-term. They are looking at, I think we are going to exclude short-term rehab from the survey this year, because typically, especially at a community like Village on the Green, when you do 60, 70, 80 admissions discharges in a month, that's a bunch of people that we'll have 600 people that need to take the survey and not do it, and makes our percentage look terrible. But then a community like Claridge Court, which has like 120 people, gets 100%. So I'm like, come on now, let's even playing field here. But I can get you by the level of living what that is.
I have two questions.
Yes.
The first one regarding TiVo and DVR. I understand we're losing TiVo for those of us who have it. Are we going to have the opportunity to either purchase or get DVR?
Good question. So the TiVos, I don't know the answer to that, whether they're going away. I think they are most likely going away. And I would say the alternative, yes, there would be an opportunity for a DVR capability. And I actually think, so just referencing my own experience, like I cut the cable, I only pay for internet, I use Hulu with live TV. But I pay Hulu like $5 a month for a virtual DVR. And so I don't have any equipment to buy, but I can record, the Red Wings game and then watch it when I get home. I think the idea is that you have that kind of an alternative. It is not a technology-based thing that you have to buy and then potentially becomes obsolete. It's just a service that is available through the internet. So I think there's going to be some sort of recording capability offered. I know Stan's giving me the evil eye over here about the TiVos. I don't think the TiVos are going to make it to the next one. But that's not 100%, but I'm close.
Second question is regarding an occurrence yesterday. I was at a friend's apartment in Building A, and I've never seen this before, but the fire alarm went off. And I was asked several times, what do we do? Because there were 8 of us there, and most of them weren't residents. But I've never heard, what should we do if a fire alarm goes off?
That's a good question. Have we done drills in the past for independent living? No. Okay. Steve?
12 years we've never had one.
Okay. Jose?
I think that you have them in the dining facility just for the visitors.
Okay. So Jose, that's probably something we want to take a look at. There isn't necessarily a requirement, but that's something you should know as to, are you sheltering in place? At what point do you evacuate? Where do you evacuate to? I don't think I've seen any rally points on campus.
Documents that do
I'm sure,
describe
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of getting that knowledge into your hands. So that's a good observation, and we'll take a look at that. Yeah. Yes, Mike.
Several months ago, I offered to pay for breakfast for the cook to go over to Kiki's and learn how to make pancakes. My offer still holds because pancakes are not crepes.
Okay. I will definitely get that to Mark and Gilry, especially Gilry. I enjoy needling him about those things, so definitely.
One other point.
Correct. I heard correct, they're not correct. Were they more like a hockey puck?
No, they're just flat, awfully flat, like crepes.
Okay.
And heavy, they're heavy too. The other issue has to do with ordering supplies over there at the kitchen. We're out of blue sugars. This morning we were out of corned beef hash. It just continues to happen that we're out of something. Is there no planning ahead going on over there?
So, my culinary committee members know this one gets into like I can go on for a while. I want to know more about your experience because I want to know who's telling you that they're out, because that can kind of help us trace back to what the actual cause is. Because outside of corned beef hash, they may have actually run out of that. Like the blue sugars, I feel pretty good I could walk into the supply room and find a box of blue sugars.
What about red wine?
I mean, there should be no outages of any of that. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, I want to make sure that gets to Gilry, that gets to Mark, so that they can dig into kind of understanding the why. Because oftentimes it's not a lack of ordering supplies. I think it's oftentimes, did you take the inventory when you ordered it that the supplies actually arrived? Did you put them in the right places? Did you set the tables and reset the sugars before service? You know, there's a lot of opportunities for that to go wrong, and I think oftentimes people just say we're out and we don't have it because that's the easy thing to do versus actually, you know, trace back. And it's not the server's responsibility to, you know, to troubleshoot that per se, but we got to give them a process of, you know, if you're out of something, here's who needs to know about it so we can figure out the why on that stuff. Because I would say for the most part, with ordering, the supply chains have gotten much better, where, you know, maybe during COVID or right after COVID, you would order something and nothing would show up. Now they're at least doing substitutes. They won't tell you they do a substitute until you actually get it, but, you know, your corned beef hash will send another like thing that they still have to adjust the menu, the recipe, but they're sending something. So you really, I'm skeptical that it's ordering per se, but definitely something to dig into. Other questions? And another microphone room and stuff? Anything else before I turn it back over to Basil? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Even teed it up for me, didn't they? This morning, we do have one not usual item on the menu that I want to talk about. And that is a communication that we are making and preparing even this morning. The members of the resident, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
The members of the resident council this morning are signing a letter that Joey will see later that is going to the executive staff at LifeSpace and the board of directors, listing some major items that are there on the board, on the chart for you. And I'll read them to you, so if you can't read them, you're going to hear them all. But I want to set the table for you a little bit before we start, just so we remember kind of how this came about. Back in after Thanksgiving, thankfully, you got it. Okay, we were called into the room, and Joey gave us a briefing about the increase that was to be effective in February of this year, February 1, and it was a 9% increase. The major part of that increase was the 3.5% of the 9% was directed toward the insurance charges here in the state of Florida that have gone up a lot that we know about. And then that was followed by letters which Joey sent to each of us telling us what our increase was. And that was the beginning of a process of finding out that instead of just being 9, which seemed high to begin with, that many of us had 10%, 10.2, various things depending on what happened. And so we began to become aware of that, and we began a period of about 60 days of really learning what was going on with regards to things like legacy discounts and market prices and a bunch of stuff like that are fairly important, but which we really didn't know much about as we began that process. Now, in that time frame, Al Porter, who you'll hear from a little later, had a lot of dialogue with the financial people at LifeSpace, mainly with Nick, who he works with. So we began to learn more and more during that period. And then at the end of February, the council came to a special meeting, and we decided that we needed to communicate some of our problems with the administration of the increase, not only the administration, but the amount of it, and how it was handled, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been struggling with that, but here we are today, after a visit from the leadership at LifeSpace, and you'll all remember it. Hopefully you were all there on the 16th of February when we were visited by Nick Harshfield, the CFO, and basically the whole staff at LifeSpace. Most of the C-class people were here. And so we had another experience of that. And this added also to the things that we were concerned about. So the council has met a number of times, and we tried to prepare a piece of correspondence. It does not cover everything that have been discussed here, because, for instance, culinary is not dealt with in this issue, but I understand there are some issues. But this piece of correspondence that is being created and signed today and for transmission to LifeSpace is really to focus on those things that are really only addressable at the corporate level, and primarily those things that are covered, at least to some extent, by Chapter 651 of the Florida statutes. So we've narrowed it down to what we think are the key issues. But it was not without a lot of work in the interim to try to get that dialogue. And Al has briefed you on the amount of interchange he's had with people at various times. So you know a little bit about that. But I just wanted to say that this wasn't just a reaction that happened now. It started back when we got our dues increase notices in January. We've been learning and preparing this piece of correspondence, but we do intend to move it on to the headquarters and to be distributed after this meeting and after we get all the signatures that we need on it. Now, with that said, I'm going to read the 5 points that are in the letter, but these are the things that we talked about. The first one was a lack of transparency in the methodology for determining the monthly fee increases. We feel it was not adequately communicated as to exactly how these procedures were to work and how they were being put together. But we found out that this market price was figured in the equation for the first time when we got our notices on December 1st. So that was the first one. And then the second item is another one that's been going on for some time, and we've had a lot of dialogue on this one, but absence of clear and complete financial reporting. And here we're talking about the audited, consolidated financial reports for LifeSpace communities. We've been getting monthly reports all along, other reports, we get quarterlies, but that's mostly obligated group. And what we need is the financials for all of LifeSpace. And we've experienced that because, as many of you know, the loss at Edgemere was distributed to obligated group members, and they were outside of the obligated group. If we had those financial statements, we would have seen something on that. The third item was unprecedented high and repetitive rate increases over the past 3 years. We have the fee increases we've had. If you were sitting here December of 2021 and you had a $1,000 bill to pay, on February 1, that $1,000 would be 33% more than it was less than 2 or 3 years ago. So that's been a substantial increase, and that's really a big dent in the financial viability of the institutions we call our families, the families of our residents. And then we've also identified unwarranted plans for unfairly discriminatory future monthly service fee adjustment practices affecting long-term residents. Now, what we mean by that is that by not adjusting the discounts so that the increase that we get is a percentage of the amount that we paid previously, it floats up over that level, and that's how we got to our 10.2%. Does that make sense to you? In other words, the benchmark, the percentage of increase was not based on what you previously paid. It was based on a market price that's in your invoice. Point made? Okay. And the final one was the lack of demonstrated corporate governance and belt tightening as financial results deteriorate. Everybody here that watches financials will know that we've had a tough time making the NOM, getting our occupancy that we desire, And especially when you look at the financial statements that talk about net income and loss, where we do have losses during this whole period. And so what we're saying here is that at some point, it's not just a passing on of the increases to residents, but it's also considerations of belt tightening in terms of the size of the corporate headquarters, salary levels, all the rest of those things ought to be put into play when we run into financial downturns. So we think that just passing it on it looks to us like it's just being passed on to the residents, whatever they need to make up for that. So those 5 points are what this letter is all about. Now, how are we going to inform you? How are we going to talk to you about this letter? Because we're not going to paper Village on the Green with this letter, number one. We're going to ask the building reps, villa reps, and the large members of the board to actually be the distribution point for this letter, and they'll be discussed with you at that time. Obviously, there's information in these letters that are detrimental to what we're trying to do. I mean, if you know, we're not going to publish it in the Sentinel, but the information is in the public domain, so it's sensitive information. So we're going to roll that out by your building meetings, villa meetings, whatever it was, and we'll have copies and we'll be able to talk to the issues. But don't expect a door hanger with this on it. We're not going out that way. We'll get it to you over time when we can sit down and talk about what's in it and why it's in there. Does that make sense? It's a sensitive subject. And the delicate thing about doing something like this is that we feel like we owe it to the residents to make these issues with the senior leadership, the board of directors and the executive staff. But at the same time, this doesn't mean we don't like living here. This doesn't mean it's a bad place or there's bad people in the system. There's just issues to be faced and addressed, and you can't solve issues and things of that nature unless you can name them and talk about what they are. So we think that on behalf of the residents of Village on the Green, we need to make these points, but we make them carefully, hopefully surgically, and get a little fairer shake in the administration of dues and increases. So with that, I'm going to ask if there are any questions, and then Al will follow me. And are there any questions? Have I raised? Yes, Joyce.
Will you communicate this letter to LifeSpace?
Oh yes, the letter will be,
Send it to LifeSpace.
I probably should have said that. The letter will be addressed to each director and each C-class officer. Starting with our guy in the back room, because Joey is part of that chain, or most proximate part of that chain. So will be given to everybody. Okay, over here.
Okay, you had mentioned that you didn't want this as a door hanger.
Huh?
You don't want this letter as a door hanger.
Absolutely not.
Right, so if residents in, let's say my building, want more information, and I can't explain it that clearly, I would refer them to.
I would say you call the meeting and Al will come, I will come, if you want somebody with
Okay,
a
great.
financial background. This is to be supported by the entire resident council. It's just not on the backs of the individual reps. We want a good, knowledgeable discussion at the building level. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, while we're discussing this with our people, if they want a copy of that letter, can they have it?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Of course. Any other questions? Have I confused anybody? Joyce?
Do you need signatures or anything for encouragement?
No, in fact, I didn't cover a lot of that. We've actually do the petitions. I know you're aware of that, and that's in the letter. We did claim that so many people did sign petitions, did protest, make the payments under protest, that sort of thing. So that's in there, and I didn't recover that in the interest of time. Yes, sir, Mike?
Is there a benefit to mentioning the potential or actual loss of residents due to the increase?
Yes. Yes, I think that's part of the problem, you know. I think that that increase will cause us to lose people, and I don't mind, I will say publicly, if it keeps going for another few years like it's going now, you'll probably lose me because I can't afford it. I think we all have to make those kind of planning documents, and increases, for me, of 10% per year are not viable. I can't live with that. Yeah. Barbara?
Basil, is there any way to know how much of that $9 million loss is attributable to corporate and how much is attributable to our local operation?
Barbara, in my opinion, somebody might have a different answer. In my opinion, no. But what we do know is this. We know at the same time that we've passed on a lot of increased fees to residents, that our staff at the headquarters, so far as we know, has not increased, and we do get 990, so we know what the corporate, and every one of you have visibility into what the corporate payroll is for the executives. We don't see that decreasing. Our assessment every year for the assessment of the home, what do they call it, home office allocation is as high as it's ever been for the budget year 2024. And we're just saying that needs to be balanced. So we do know that certain things have continued to go up, or at least stay stable, and the individual units, the people that live in our villas and apartments, have continued to have their financial position deteriorated. And so we think there's a better balance that ought to be achieved. Yeah, Carol?
Yeah, I read that people can still send their protests through March.
Yes, you can send it as long as you want. There's no question on
Okay,
on
thank
that.
you.
You can always do that. That's an individual resident right. Okay. Yes, Joey?
Yes, I understand that the protest letters go into our file. Do the protest letters only go into our individual files, or do they also go to LifeSpace?
No, the LifeSpace is aware of them. I'm not sure how they're transmitted, but Joey asked us when we told him we were going to do what Al and I signed out to the residents, and he said he would like to be the point of transmission, and that's the I don't know, how are you transferring the information?
I scan them in batches.
Scan, okay, that answers the question. Yes, it does go to, but he has to be able to be in the loop on that, and that's fine with us. Anybody else?
Are there any addressees outside the corporation?
Yes, sir. Not addressees, Steve, that there are distributions outside the corporate, outside the organization, such as OIR is probably the big one.
So the state would receive it
Yes, yeah.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are outside people above, besides board of directors.
Yes, correct, that's correct. And you'll see, if we've got a distribution list, people that, yeah, okay. You will.
Want to read it?
Yeah, Dodie?
Yes. If they continue to overspend money, and we owe a lot of money, could this place close down?
I refuse to answer on the grounds it might incriminate. Of course, the issue, I don't think I'm making any statement out of the flat. One of the problems with the statement which Jesse just announced, 2 days ago or 1 day ago, that is going to be sold, they've never had a problem with occupancy. And my understanding of the problem there is debt level. It's a highly leveraged, of course, and we're very highly leveraged right now. And so that issue is covered in this letter, the concern over the debt level. Yes, Jeff?
I just want to thank you for the efforts that you all have put in to help us understand what's happening.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's never a one-person show when we do this, and I've got to deflect that to the members of the council, because we put a lot of hours and efforts in that. Probably Al Porter had the bulk of it in the finance committee. But everybody that I could get would be roped in, and poor Ann Blair has read, she says she's up to the 75th edition of the letter. Now, what time is it? It's okay. I really do want to answer any questions you got. Yeah. Yes.
That's in Diana's stead.
Huh?
That my participation is.
Oh
in
yeah,
Diana's
see that, and that's that. I talk about deflecting a compliment, and I want to deflect that too, because Diana, our secretary, early this year broke up her both knees, and so she's been out of the loop. So all the administrative stuff had to be picked up by our former chair, our current chair, Mitra, Emerita is what it's called. Emerita had to pick up that administrative work. So you owe a round of applause to a lot of people. But what I really want to talk to the choir here about, if I can, this isn't something that we really are trying to put ourselves in an adversarial role with the provider. But we think there are some changes that need to be made at that level, and we need to speak on behalf of our residents. Now, will we get pushback? Heavens, yes. And we'll get pushback, and do we know everything? No, we might be wrong about something, but you never get into dialogue if you don't begin the process, and so get ready for that as well. There will be pushback and concern, because they came out and gave us a briefing, and as far as these legacy discounts are concerned, if I understood them right, they intend for those to go away, which means that the basic thing that will impact your future rates will be this market rate.
The legacy discounts for healthcare?
No, legacy discounts that you see on your invoice every month. So that was yeah, Al?
Going back to could this place possibly be closed, I think a lot of people are concerned that we are spending a great deal of money on capital improvements. At the same time, we are running into a large deficit. And has that been addressed in any form or shape?
Yes. 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 Yes, Joyce.
Yes, could you address what I hear from a lot of residents, but definitely not a majority, that this is pointless because this is a democracy, and what can actually change? Could you give your opinion on that?
Yeah, yes. We're in a contractual relationship, and we do have to read our contracts. One of the reasons that we were pleased to actually go through Joey is that we are required, first of all, to go to our provider with this stuff. No matter what else happens, we're required to start there. Rephrase your question. I want to make sure I answer it right. I can hear you.
Okay.
Speak up.
Of what value is it to do any kind of protest letter if this is not a democracy? Can we actually bring about change?
In my opinion, every customer can bring about change. General Motors is not a democracy, but Toyota had a terrific impact on them over time, because the customer base really does have a voice in the success, the ultimate success of organizations. And if you don't speak up, one thing you know for sure, nothing will. So I would rather err on the side of speaking up inappropriately than I would be shut up all the time. But that's just my personal view. Yeah. But getting back to your point, we've written letters many times, and to be very frank, with very little success. Yeah. Okay.
Just one comment, that we're looking for fairness, we are not looking for confrontation.
Okay, that's a good way to say it, staff. Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Anybody else? I really welcome this opportunity, and how do you want to come up and pick up where I left off? While Hal's coming up, I do want to say one thing. I scared Ann Blair because I put the culinary thing on the agenda. What happened is Joey has told all of you that we hosted a culinary event, a regional one here last week, and we had some really good information that I'd like to get out to you, particularly on healthy menus. LifeSpace has some publications for menus and comments on foods that'll really be useful to you. We're not ready to do that today, so hands off the hook.
Thank you.
Okay.
I
Thank
wasn't
you. Al?
there.
Al?
Doctor, what was your comment with, do we want what, our confrontation?
Fairness.
Fairness.
Fairness. Sometimes without confrontation, you don't get fairness either. I had only 2 or 3 things to talk about, but the conversation brought up a lot of stuff. But let me digress for a moment and tell you the real thing I wanted to tell you this morning first. Everybody knows Sandy Shantini, I believe, but very few don't. Sandy, if you don't know, is leaving Village on the Green. And that means Sandy is leaving the Finance Committee. I've been here 6 years, and when I first got here, Sandy was on the Finance Committee, and today, until today, she's been on the Finance Committee. She has been the secretary of the Finance Committee for donkey's years, and has done a marvelous job. We're going to miss Sandy. For those of you who are friends of Sandy, you probably know that she's relocating, but she's relocating about 200 yards outside the gate to a nice apartment that she's secured. Is fixing it up with her office and stuff. Her business is still a few blocks down the street. So we'll still see her, but I just wanted you to know that the Finance Committee is going to miss Sandy, and I think a lot of us are. And we are so grateful for the time she spent and the things she did here. We will miss her. And in the flip side of that coin, I will tell you that the Finance Committee is adding a new member, not having anything to do with Sandy, but Steve Cassetta, a relatively new resident, who I see doesn't have his manager with him. Steve, welcome. Steve is joining the Finance Committee. His background is finance. He was a corporate controller, a very large industrial combine, and we are glad to have Steve here. He will join us for our meeting later this month. Audited financials is one of the things that's on our list here in the letter, and I will tell you one additional action that has occurred. It's almost humorous. Everybody had a chance to see the notice from Jesse that the Staten, a community in Fort Worth, Texas, is being sold to, I think it's Buckner is the name of the corporation. It's quite a prestigious community, actually. It's one of only 2 communities in LifeSpace that remain from the purchase of the Southern Quality Lifestyles Corporation, SQLC. And 5 of those 6 corporations are bankrupt. The one that's not is Carencia and Barton Creek outside Austin. But we have now the company has ridded itself of Staten. And I say ridded itself. The only problem with Staten, it had like a 90% occupancy rate, but it had a debt burden that it could not support. So it's interesting enough, there are 2 reasons that have been given us by Nick Hartsfield, our CFO, for not having audited financials. The first was Deerfield, and Edgemere, excuse me. And we all know about that $160 million debacle. The other one was the Staten, because its debt load was so great that it couldn't make ends meet, not nearly, and no hope in the future. And it was the second cause for the inability of LifeSpace to file annual financial reports to include notes required for unaudited financial and actually remain active in the business. So they didn't do it. Now that that's gone, I sent an email to Nick 2 days ago, congratulating him on getting rid of the statement, and said to Nick, this post-closing, meaning after we close the 2023 financials, this post-closing debt reduction action should give us a better shot at audited financials. And he responded very quickly, thanks for the email, stay tuned. I'm working with the auditors now. So maybe one of the items with which we are sort of arguing with management at the corporate level may get taken care of. We certainly hope so. There is hope, we think. A commentary on Mike, your question. The Form 990 is the corporate income tax return, Form 990, for a not-for-profit corporation. When filed, that tax return is a matter of public record. We get a copy of that so we can see corporations' reported tax issues and items and the top 20 corporate level salaries in the organization. So we have a lot of information there. One problem with it is it's about 1.5 years old, because the latest one we have is 2022. We won't get 2023 until about October this year. But we follow that. The Finance Committee looks at those things. If you want to ask questions about it, we can talk to you about it. We do a lot of stuff like that, if you will, to follow the corporation. I also have to say that all of this is directed not at Village on the Green, not at our ED, who has done a great job with us, I believe, and we're happy to have him here. He's turned this organization around quite a bit in only 1 year, and we're, Joey, we're lucky to have you. Now, I'd add the OIR records ultimately are public as well. Some of the potential also copied entities might be the Senior Living Council, the Attorney General's office, there's a Senate Senior Living?
Senior Committee on
Committee on Aging.
Committee on Senior, yeah.
Some of those are potential copies also for the document we're sending out. And also, Mike, to your question about departures and stuff like that, the letter that we sent, the Finance Committee sent a final letter following our visit here from Jesse and the other C-suite people from LifeSpace, and the fact that we really didn't get any satisfaction in anything we wanted, and we felt that closure was necessary, so we sent them a letter. That letter is posted in our minute book in the lounge. Each committee of the resident council is required to provide a book with the minutes and the activities of that committee. That letter is posted. Now, one thing that is not posted in that book is the email that I transmitted that document to Nick Harshfield with. And the reason it's separate is because it's very personal to me. But as chair of your financial committee, I think I owe you the information that I included personally that was not included in the letter. So I'd like, it takes 30 seconds to read it. I'd like to read it to you. You get a feel for how I feel about this. Hi, Nick. Attached is our committee's response to your email on our February 16 meeting and subsequent town hall session at VOTG. It is the work of the entire committee and is representative of the sentiments of VOTG residents collectively, many of whom appear to be near a tipping point. Remember, this is after our town hall on the 16th. In addition, to be fully transparent, I'm adding my personal, candid comments. You may share them, but please note they are intended only to convey feelings that have been expressed to me by residents that I represent. Of VOTG's 207 occupied units, 150 have only a single resident, and over 100 are female. Several very concerned single ladies have approached me personally to discuss the February increase and its effect on them. They are alarmed, and some are considering leaving VOTG. One, my finance committee secretary, has already left. And I fear other departures, especially among our ladies. My counsel to them is to be patient, and we hope the increased occupancy we're working toward will reduce our burden soon. It is our primary goal. But your email belies that prospect. If increases continue at current rates, I would expect many defections. New members tell me they receive up to $30,000 discounts on entry fees, but find VOTG monthly service fees to be higher than the competition. I believe an opportunity was missed during your February visit. Jesse remarked the sale of Abbey Del Rey would remove a $9 million drain on LifeSpace results. And a few sentences later, he told us that LifeSpace had propped VOTG up to the tune of $9 million. The obvious inference was not lost on our residents. They felt they were being chastised and perhaps even threatened. And where was the compliment for ending the year, Joey's first, with a negative NOM of $96,000? And that's before Joey changed it on us this morning. It's $260,000, but at the end, we were looking at $96,000, which was admittedly still a loss. But what an improvement from the previous loss number. Positive reinforcement is a powerful tool, and it could have been used rather than hammering the poor past. VOTG financials have improved significantly since 2022, and our residents need to be encouraged to continue the trend, not scolded again for past sins. A final comment. It's very difficult for most residents to understand the announcement of a rate increase that's calculated differently from all those in the past, without explanation, and that results in a rate greater than announced. It's an affront to most residents and damages credibility. That should not have happened, and one wonders why it did. It caused damage. Nick, I sincerely believe attitudes are important to success, and especially when seniors are involved. We're all on the same team, and good news should be appreciated and applauded. I could go on a lot longer, but as you have said, you can do only so much with emails. FaceTime is needed for finality, and we have serious issues. Thanks for reading this. It was sincere. That's it.
Response?
Sorry?
Have you received a response?
No, frankly, I did not expect one. The letter that was attached to this, which you can read, it's long and I don't want to go into it here, we don't have time, was really written to Nick, but it addressed Jesse. The letter responds to the lengthy email that we all know that I received from Nick, which was, I believe was written, we all believe on the financial, was written by Jesse. So if Jesse's gonna communicate with us through Nick, I will have to communicate with Jesse through Nick. And that's why they went to Nick. The personal comments were for Nick, but they were also expected to get to Jesse. We're all working for the same thing, but to come in and put a foot on the neck of seniors who are trying and really fighting for the same goals is terribly defeating, in my honest opinion. So I really get frustrated with it. But like the tortoise, I'm not ready to give up. This is a wonderful community, wonderful people. And I thank you all for what you do for voting on green. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Al, for that, and I hope you're all enriched by what you've heard this morning. And that was that was one channel of communication, but it may be the most effective one. Okay, we'll see. Now I have we've got 8 minutes to go, and I've been trying to showcase committees, and I would really like to showcase the next one. And is Don ready to look? Don, are you there? Yeah. Don is the newly elected chief of the sports committee. Before he starts, I just want to make a brief comment. He got a circuitous, he came to that office in a circuitous way because there was a bunch of Brady Wilkins people that wanted to do something for the community. And so we got talking and we thought, well, maybe Sports Day, the resurrection of Sports Day would be a thing that we could do for the community. It didn't cost anything, but have fun. And Don's going to tell you how. Okay? Thank you.
Boy, those are hard act to follow. But anyways, I'd like to make one correction right away. We've changed the date to the 19th because there's been some conflicts identified. And like Basil said, what we're trying to do is reestablish the community, the whole spirit, and get everybody together for sports. Sports are good, and you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be an Olympian, let me put it that way. There's going to be 10 events, there'll be 2 teams, and we've just finished choosing up the teams just yesterday, Rhonda and I, so. And there'll be an opening ceremony, and there's a free lunch, which generally will get people's attention. You can sign up. We basically have sign up complete, but what we'd like to do is have people sign up also to be supporters, to encourage, to cheer on your teams. You don't have to be a pro, trust me. You don't have to be a pro. But what you do have to do is just have fun, okay? If you're not able to play for any reason, just participate. Just be out there and cheer on your friends and your neighbors, okay?
You say you're looking for athletic supporters?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you can either be one or wear one, I don't care. Anyway. Okay. At the front desk, you'll see the sign-up sheets for supporters. There's been door hangers, the Green Horizon. There'll be more coming out, okay? And like I say, plan to attend and be a supporter, participate in the fun. Okay, that's not it. Okay. But anyways, I just want to keep it short because I'm sure I'm impinging on somebody's lunchtime. But thank you very much, and come on, let's all get out there and have a good time.
Okay, well, we still got 5 minutes, okay? It's a heavy morning, but I want to have Dr. Moss to talk to you about the healthcare committee.
Thank you, Basil.
The reason I mentioned the health center to begin with, I knew this was on the agenda if we could get it in.
After the bad news, now the good news.
And the fun news and the supporting news. Go ahead. You'll have to talk into this.
Thank you. Basil asked me to give a report from the Healthcare Committee. I'm Zaf Abbas, some of you know me, majority of you know me. I became the chairperson of the Healthcare Committee, and we had 2 meetings. At the very first meeting, I asked a question: what is the meaning of health? We are a healthcare committee, but what is health? What's the definition? Well, you have a slide?
The next one? I had the definition up there.
Okay. The definition of health by World Health Organization, it is a state of physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or disability. So it's a much different definition than we usually think. It's, again, I want to repeat, it's important. Physical, mental, and social well-being, and not the absence of disease or disability. If we consider that in that case, it's much wider definition. If we in Health Committee are going to be of any use to the community, we are to think in these terms, and we should try and encourage everybody that we help each other to restore our health, our physical, mental, and social well-being, not just here, but also in the Oaks as well. Our second task was, what are the duties of the Healthcare Committee? What should we be doing? And after discussion, the committee decided that there are 2 major issues really we should be. One is that we should inform everybody what is health and how can you improve your health, how can you help yourself, and how can we assist you in maintaining good health, and pass it on to not just here, but also in the Oaks and people who were there. And I'm making it very short because there's not enough time. And the second portion was that it is okay that we inform the people, but what else can we do to improve the health? And in that case, I believe that you all know that we mean the independent living people, go over to the Oaks to assist those people. That we try and recruit, train people who would eventually become the guardian angels, are just to be volunteers and go to the Oaks and help those folks who are there. They are part of our family, but they happen to be in the other place now, higher care living place. Yeah. And it's important, really, believe it or not, that if you go and spend just a few minutes, and some of those people are sitting here who go there, it is so important for those people because many of them don't have any relatives, neighbors, or friends. If we spend few minutes with them, it's a great help to them. And they feel much better at the end of the day. Yes, somebody came and visited me. If you volunteer, we will try and find a way to train you people to become guardian angels, just to be volunteers to go and talk to some people. And everybody agrees just as important. And our third issue was that home health care, believe it or not, will all need some time. It's not very well managed in this community and throughout large space. I don't know how many of you are aware of this fact, that home health care, that we have in this place is not approved by the Medicare. So if you have home health care, your care cannot be billed to Medicare because our health care, home health care people here, they are not certified by Medicare. It's also important to know that if you ask for home health care, our people here do not accept your insurances.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry?
I did not hear your last statement.
I said that if you were to get home health care, our home health care department would not accept the insurance. You'll have to pay them, and they would help you build the insurance, but they do not accept insurance. I happen to be, by chance, meet our Director of Healthcare for the Life Space, Rick Oros is his name. And I mentioned this to him, and he agreed with me, yes, it is a deficiency, and he would try and see if we can be, not just us, but throughout the life space, if home health care departments be certified by the Medicare. If that becomes possible, then we can bill the Medicare. He did mention it'll take more than a year or two, but he said he will try his best. It is a long shot. I'm not suggesting I'll be able to help in this regard, but we will try our best, see if it can be done. It's not anyone's fault in our community, our administration, etc. This is throughout the life space. And it's important, I think, that our healthcare people should be certified and help us. Last but not least, we would we hope that we can publish a healthcare letter and send to all of you to inform you of what is going on in the healthcare community and how can you help yourself. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. I made it very short. Thank you.
I do understand though, if we have insurance and our doctor recommends home health care, we don't have anything to do with this place. We can bring in sort of our okayed by Medicare healthcare people to take care of us.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
That there are outside facilities who will provide the home health care, and they are certified by the Medicare and the insurance. It's not really our own administration, etc. They'll try to help us whatever they can. It is throughout the life space that home health care is not certified by the Medicare.
So I want to just kind of add some clarity to that. There's two distinct things that are occurring. Home health and personal services. Those are not the same thing, okay? Home health is covered, can be covered by Medicare. There's a nursing component to it. You have a skilled nursing need where you need to be seen by an RN at certain frequencies in your home, or you have a therapy need that you're seen on an outpatient basis for a certain period of time. LifeSpace does not provide home health. What did not help the situation is for the longest time, everybody called it home health. And then they went through this kind of LifeSpace personal services branding. That is in an effort to distinguish that separate from Medicare home health. Personal services is assistance with shopping, assistance with bathing. You have licensed, certified nursing assistants, personal care attendants providing those. That is a licensed service in the state of Florida, right? But none of those services can be covered under Medicare. Okay, so it's not that you are paying out of pocket for something that you could have been getting covered through insurance. There are some long-term care insurance policies separate from Medicare that will cover portions of that personal care services, and by all means, we'll take their money for sure. So, important kind of distinction to make here. We don't provide home health. There's also, even if we did have home health on campus, there are rules as to we cannot become your default provider, right? You have to have the choice to be able to select from a variety of home health providers who you want to use. So say you're in the skilled nursing and you're going to be discharged home, and your physician writes you an order for both nursing and therapy outpatient services or home health. We can guide you and say, hey, here are people who come here are people who have had good experiences, but it's ultimately up to you to make that decision as to which provider you want to make. So even if we had a home health agency here, it's not a default, everybody, all that business comes to us. Medicare, Medicaid certification is an incredibly difficult process. Like if you're trying to open a nursing home anywhere, it's going to take you 2 years just to get the license. And during those 2 years, you're providing services for free. That is an onerous process to go through. So how do people get home health? Typically through consolidation. You go and you buy a company that has that license and you carry it on. Could LifeSpace buy a home health agency and provide that throughout the country? Yes, absolutely could. But that does not come it comes at a pretty penny. And then you also have to be able to say, I can at least scale up the business and be able to provide those services effectively, cost effectively on a community basis. I'll tell you, we don't have enough volume of home health to be able to support our own home health agency here. If we were covering all of Central Florida, sure, we could definitely have enough business to do that. But is our job to be providing Central Florida services or to be focused on Village on the Green residence services? So there's a lot of nuances into like how all of that kind of plays out.
Correct. It's very difficult really. When I talked to Mr. Horace, he mentioned it is really hard. It'll take a long time before we can get the approval. Nevertheless, you can get outside agencies and they are covered by Medicare, and you can have insurance covered by the outside agencies. Thank you.
Well, 7 minutes, thank you very much. I think we've got 7 minutes more detail this time than we usually do. So can we adjourn the meeting? Hey, thank you all for your attention.